How's it going, everyone? Time for another episode of Movies from A to Z. We're up to the letter U, and that stands for The Unguarded Moment. This is a crime thriller / juvenile delinquent teenage angst film. Another one of my video beat films. So anyway, I like this movie a lot. This is one of those that played incessantly back in the late 60s and all through the 70s on TV, back in the days when TV on Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon just played old movies all day long and into the night. Man, I really miss those days. Oh well. Enough of that. Let's talk about the movie, Mike. Okay, the film stars Esther Williams. Esther Williams, who was a major star at MGM in the 1940s and early 50s. Sometimes as a dramatic actress and sometimes as a comedian, but mostly she was doing films where she was swimming. She was a former Olympic swimming champion, and when she signed with MGM, they weren't quite sure what to do with her, but they finally put her in a film called Bathing Beauty, where she just got to dive and swim and wear really nice swimsuits. She was a gorgeous woman, so she became a really big star. But by the mid-1950s, the swimming epics started to dry up for Esther, so she left MGM, and this is one of the first things she did, trying to do a new image and be a dramatic actress. So didn't really work out at the box office. It was a box office failure, which I find that hard to believe because I really love this movie. But anyway, in this film, she plays a high school music teacher named Lois Conway, who is very well liked by the students and everybody else. And she starts getting these strange, suggestive notes from one of her students, presumably a boy, who is inviting her to go out on a date and do other stuff. So several of these notes are put in her mailbox. She doesn't know she can't find out who did it. And the notes start getting a little bit more dramatic. We don't know exactly what the last note said that really set her off, but it must have been very suggestive. And then she gets a note from the same guy who invites her to meet him late at night in the boys' locker room. Well, what would you do? Of course, if you were a young woman and you were being sexually accosted by a teenage boy and he invited you to meet him alone in the middle of the night in a locker room, of course you'd go. Well, that's what Esther did. She went like Lois went. Not a smart move, but her intention was supposedly that she was going to try to talk this kid out of acting the way he's acting and threatening her the way he's threatening her before he, gets into big trouble with the police. Well, it doesn't work out quite the way she had hoped. He assaults her and tears her dress, and but she gets away before anything drastic happens. So it starts this big dramatic sort of a push and pull between Lois Conway and the school authorities. She finally goes to the school authorities and tells them what has been happening. And they find her accusations hard to believe. I forgot one point. She actually sees this boy's face, so she knows who the guy is. It turns out to be a kid named Leonard Bennett, who happens to be played by John Saxon, and he is the big football star at the school. Handsome young guy, well liked by everybody, worshipped by the teachers and the parents and everybody. So the last kid in the world that somebody would want to believe would do something criminal like this. Well, nobody believes her, and she was stupid enough to throw away all the notes, so she has no proof. And she gets a very bad reception from all these people who say, we can't believe that Leonard Bennett would do such a thing. It kind of calls to mind what's happening today with all these sexual assault charges and people coming out and talking about it. The Me Too movement, the way women have always had to just sort of try to live in a culture where when something happens to them, people don't believe them, and it happens quite often. Still happens today, obviously. And this is a very good example of it. Now, of course, this film was also made to be sort of an exploitational film, and the idea that it's kind of a lurid side to it, where this beautiful teacher is obviously very attractive to a lot of the boys at school, and maybe she's, you know, not telling the truth about her intentions. Of course, now the viewer is on her side because we know the truth, we know what really happened, but it doesn't really go well for her during most of the film. She's being helped by George Nader, who plays a police detective who was investigating the case, and he believes her, and he also falls in love with her. She falls in love with him, so there's a nice little romantic angle going on. And Leonard Bennett, played by John Saxon, is the son of a prominent businessman played by Edward Andrews, who is a terrific character actor. He's a face that you've seen in so many films and television shows. It would be it would take forever to list them. You would know the guy if you saw him. You'd know him immediately, probably, if you were around back in the 60s and 70s. Well, anyway, I was. So I'm babbling about the film. It's a very good movie. The story was actually written by actress Rosalind Russell. She had written the story several years earlier with the intention that she would play the teacher, but it got delayed for many reasons, and by the time it finally got around to being made into a film, she was considered too old. She even considered herself to be too old, so it went to a younger actress. So I actually like this movie very much. It has everything I like in it, the whole teenage angle, teenagers hanging out in a malt shop that plays rock and roll, and rock and roll was pretty new back then. Just a lot of cool things about it. And George Nader was a very likable actor. Of course, he was the guy who played in Robot Monster back in 1953. He made a lot of films at Universal Studios. And Esther Williams, after this, failed to the box office. She only made about 3 or 4 more films before she retired in the early 60s. And let's see, John Saxon, of course, I thought this was his film debut, because at the end of this film, the very last thing that they show on screen after they show all of the cast members, they show a full screen of John Saxon standing there with this big, beautiful smile on his face, and said, "You have just witnessed a new personality, John Saxon," something like that. And I thought that was the first film that he'd done, but he had actually made his debut in a film the year before, another teenage juvenile delinquent thing called Running Wild, which starred Mamie Van Doren, another good movie. So anyway, this is a very cool film. What else do I want to say about it? Probably nothing. I guess I'm finished. Okay, let me know if you ever heard of this, and comments are welcome. Okay. Good night, folks.